Oh, hey, cool, you clicked it. Nice one. Thanks. It's got that funk, obviously. I'm right in the middle of working on a video for a video response to the atheist antidote for his recent video called The Leftist Definition, because it did incense me a little bit there. And the problem is, of course, in order to do a proper response video to Brock, I have to do a lot of plagiarism, and this involves an awful lot of work and writing things down, which takes time. And anything that takes time makes me impatient, and I'm getting a bit impatient, and I want to do something a bit more lighthearted to give myself a bit of a break from all that. And I'll probably have that video in the next day or 2 days. Anyway, right. So I decided to do a top 10 list because it's been a while since I've done a top 10 video. This is going to be my top 10 films. And here at the top of the list, I've got The Wizard of Oz. Now, if you've never seen The Wizard of Oz in a cinema, if you ever get the chance, do so. Because if you've only ever seen it on a small screen, you really haven't properly seen it, I have to say. It's one of those films that really does diminish quite a bit in terms of its enjoyability on the small screen. Um, but The Wizard of Oz is fantastic. I mean, when I was a little kid and the first time I saw that, and the moment when it goes from black and white to color, it was fucking fantastic. And I think it's charming, it's funny. Um, the city of Oz is Art Deco heaven to an Art Deco fan like me. And just in general, it's a great ride. It's entertaining and it's good no matter how old or young you are. Next on my list is Pulp Fiction. Now, I personally think Pulp Fiction is one of the best films I've ever seen. It's got the best script I can think of. A movie that begins in the middle of the story, ends in the middle of the story, the beginning of the story is in the middle of the movie, and the end of the story is in the middle of the movie. And somehow, that all makes great sense when you're watching it. And the dialogue is fantastic. The direction is slick and cool as fuck. So if you don't mind some raunchy humor and a bit of blood, Pulp Fiction is one of the best movies you could ever watch. Next on my list here is When Harry Met Sally. Now, I wanted very badly to include a romantic comedy in this because I do love the genre. Although I do admit that most rom-coms are pretty much on the inane side. They're mostly meant for pure entertainment. When it comes to pure entertainment romantic comedies, I would have listed Pillow Talk, which came out in 1960, and it's probably one of the first sort of non-musical romantic comedies that I can think of. But Pillow Talk stars Doris Day and Rock Hudson, by the way, and if you ever get a chance to watch it, please do so because it's fantastic. It's a Billy Wilder script, and it's acted with charm and affection, and it's beautiful to watch. But When Harry Met Sally is one of those movies that really does make you think. Um, I think the script is amazing. It's been perfectly acted and perfectly directed, and the points about the film about the strains that can exist in friendships that exist between men and women who are generally trying to be platonic friends. Sometimes the attraction can get in the way, and sometimes the best way to resolve that attraction is by getting together, and sometimes it's not. And I think the movie explores that pretty much pretty well, and certainly was one of the first films ever to explore that. So I think that's pretty cool. Next on my list here, I've written down The Truman Show. Now, I personally think a lot of people who watched that movie didn't seem to get it. I know so many people who watched that movie and thought, oh, it wasn't really very funny. It wasn't really meant to be. That movie's an archetype, if you will, of the human experience. And there are so many great moments in the movie that I'm not going to list them all off, but my favorite one is when Truman's trying to escape and he gets on the boat and sailing off across the sea, and his boat runs into the sky, and he runs to the end of the boat and he's throwing himself against the sky trying to escape. And you see, I look at that and I see that as an archetype for the human experience. I mean, at various different points in one's life, you run up against the limits of your existence, and almost always you want to get past that. You want to know what more there is. And I think The Truman Show is a beautiful movie. It's really, really well done. And the whole thing about how he leaves it was great. So yeah. Next on my list here, hang on. Gotta get a bit more cozy. Next on my list here is Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Uh-oh. Hang on. There we go. Thought I knocked over a can of Coke for a second there. Anyway, right. Doctor Strangelove came out in 1963, not long after the Cuban Missile Crisis, and so it must have been pretty controversial when it came out because it's all about nuclear war. And it's one of the first films to come out which really sort of dealt with nuclear war head on, and more to the point, it actually deals with the concept that, hey, maybe we won't be able to survive a nuclear war. Because believe it or not, once upon a time, not all that long ago, people used to think that you could lob a few nuclear weapons at your enemy and get away with it. Those days never existed, and they're certainly long gone if they ever did. Um, and by the way, Doctor Strangelove is a fantastic movie. It makes its point with humor and with its a depth that I just find stunning, shocking. Try and pick a word this time. Next on my list here is The Empire Strikes Back. Now, I think The Empire Strikes Back is one of the most beautiful movies in terms of cinematography. It's a great action movie if you like that kind of thing. It's a great sci-fi and fantasy movie if you like that kind of thing. But for me, the reason it's on this list is I was really lucky, you see. I got to see Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back both on respectively opening night. And so when I saw The Empire Strikes Back, no one could have seen it before me. And so therefore there were no spoilers. And I can tell you for sure, when Darth Vader stretched out his hand and says, "No, Luke, I am your father," fuck me, man. I will never have another moment like that in a cinema. My blood ran cold. And I had kind of the same reaction that Luke did. I was like, no, that can't be. That's impossible. And I just, wow. Anyway, right. Next time, oh, just as an aside, I saw The Empire Strikes Back 33 times in the cinema. And just as an aside to that, I have seen one film, only one film, more times in the cinema than I've seen The Empire Strikes Back. There is one film I've seen almost 200 times in the cinema. First person to guess which film that is, down in comments, gets a painting. I'll paint you one specially and make a video for you. All right, how's that? Next on my list here is Natural Born Killers. Now, I know a lot of people don't like that movie, and at the time it came out, it was quite controversial. People said it was too graphic and too violent, and blah, 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 blah. Uh, I sometimes wonder if people see the same movies that I do. Yes, it's got a bit of gratuitous violence. Of course it does. It's the point. It's about natural born killers. It's about serial killers. Hello? Of course it's going to be violent, you dumb. But the point it's trying to make is about voyeurism and about the association with violence and entertainment. And I think it's brilliant. I think it makes the point really, really well. And I think because it's so in your face, the subtleties about the film sort of do get missed. Anyway, moving along my list here because I keep running over time. Jesus Christ Superstar. If you're an atheist and you've never seen the play or the movie Jesus Christ Superstar, I highly recommend that you go out right now and buy the original film, 1973, directed by Norman Jewison. Now, Jesus Christ Superstar is an amazing bit of work because if it's played a certain way by the actors, I've seen it live a few times and so on, if it's played a certain way by the actors, it comes across as quite reverential towards Christians and Christianity. On the other hand, if it's played another way by the actors, it comes across as being sort of mocking and taking the piss out of Christians and Christianity. And the movie, to its credit, manages to do both. And that is quite a feat. I think it's a feat in general for the writers, Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber, who wrote that when they were only 21 years old. It's an amazing feat that they managed to get the balance so close that it could be acted either way. And Jesus Christ Superstar, the actors in the movies, Carl Anderson plays Judas, and his part could not be played better. Same with Ted Neely as Jesus. They've absolutely nailed it. Moving right along, Lord of the Rings. I'm going to quote Defender of Reason on this one. If you don't like Lord of the Rings, well, we've got nothing left to talk about. I think Lord of the Rings is definitely the best movie that I've seen in the past 10 years. And I hope that it remains that way. It scares me to think what it's going to take to knock that one off my list of great movies. But I think Peter Jackson did a fantastic job. Everyone said that that book could not be brought to life on film. And it's not entirely true to the book, of course, but no film ever is. And I think it couldn't have been much more well done. Last on my list is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I'm sure it might be one of yours, especially if you're of a certain age. But if you're too young to have ever watched this movie, do yourself a favor and watch it. It's Singing in the Rain, starring Gene Kelly and Debbie Reynolds. And it's hilariously funny. It was shot in the 50s, but it was about the 1920s, and so it sort of has a historical slant to it, which I think is quite amusing as well. But the coolest thing about the movie to me is it stars Gene Kelly. And as a dancer and as a fan of movies, I absolutely love Gene Kelly. I think he's one of the best dancers and singers Hollywood ever produced. And with the possible exception of Cary Grant, he's without a doubt the coolest actor Hollywood's ever produced as well. So yeah, Singing in the Rain. That's my number 10. If you want to tell me what your top 10 favorite films are, do so in comments. I'd love to see it. All right. Meanwhile, this has Got That Funk. Thanks for watching, and may all your ups and downs be ups.